Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. I'm Coach Tyler, here today with the lovely Dr. Lisa, as always. How are you, Lisa?
I am very good. How are you?
I'm doing well, yeah, and I'm really excited today because we get to do a You and Me episode. And it's fun on the You and Me episodes because I know we both have a lot to say about things in the fitness industry. And that is exactly what we're going to do today. We thought to ourselves, hey, what can we do for this episode? You know, it's the beginning of January still. And I think that people are still going to be just scrambling for every little fitness trend out there. And so what we did is we plugged this question into ChatGPT. Tell us the top 10 fitness trends that will be emerging in 2025. And the thought was, let's go through each one of these and let's comment on them. So we're going to have a little free-flowing conversation where we're commenting on these 10 trends right now. And I think it'll be fun to share our thoughts. Yeah.
Chat created quite the list. So
yeah,
I'll get ready.
It's a fun list. You don't have to worry. We're not going to trash on any like trend-specific thing, but it's more like a macro themes that I think in a lot of ways this list is a lot of positive directions, but we'll give our thoughts on each one.
For sure.
So let's dive right in. You ready?
Do it. I'm ready.
Okay. Number one is wearable technology. Wearable technology. Why don't you go first on this one?
Yeah. I mean, I think for most of these, I'm going to have mixed feelings. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
I love the idea of awareness. I love the idea of being able to, you know, I think it's so cool to like know your heart rate at any given point, right? Or to be able to check your respiration rate. Like that's beautiful data when used properly. My issue with the wearable technology is for people who have any history of obsession with exercise and eating disorders or anything of that nature, that wearable technology can get really dangerous because now you are hyper aware of everything your body is doing, and it can just be a lot of information that's not necessary. So, you know, my personal stance with wearable technology is I don't wear it.
Yeah.
Because I have a history of overdoing it and getting way too wrapped up in these numbers and allowing that data, instead of it just being neutral data, to make that determine how I treat myself for the day.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me personally, not interested. But I see so many great applications, especially if you are an elite athlete, or even if you're not, if you're training for something, if you have a medical condition where it's like important to know your numbers at different times, I think it could be very beneficial, but not for your girl. It's a no for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a story about this one for myself. So I first got exposed to this. I got lucky to get exposed to some really amazing, like high level strength training circles and athletic circles really early on. And, you know, I learned that the Russians were using this in the 80s, right? And their machine was like the size of a room to measure heart rate variability, which is a big one that's hot right now. You got the Whoop and the Oura Ring and things like that.
Right.
And so I bought a polar heart rate monitor, and I bought the first one that you could plug into your computer and everything, and started measuring HRV. And really all this thing does is basically say, how recovered is your nervous system?
Yeah.
Are you burned out and you should be like going for a walk and getting a nap and doing some yoga? Are you in the middle? Maybe you do some strength work and some stretching and stuff. Or are you like green light, let's go, you know, let's just burn your body out kind of thing. And like you said, I think for elite athletes, like this is your job. Your job is to be fit and to work out and to play your sport well. But the other side of the job that most people don't realize is to recover at an elite level,
100%.
right? And I think that these devices can help you determine whether or not you're successfully recovering at an elite level. So fast forward a decade or so, because that thing was cumbersome. You had to put that strap around your chest and like lay down first thing in the morning and blah. And I was just about to have a kid, and it was just like, it was the wrong timing, right? But then all of a sudden they come out with these Whoops and Oura Rings and things like that. And like you, I think there's some value to this, right? There's those cases where someone's like blood pressure goes up and it, like their Apple Watch saves them, right? Or something like that. But there's this obsession side of it that I think is not very helpful, right? And I'll touch on another piece of this in just one sec. So I started using the Oura Ring, and it's given me the same red light, yellow light, green light kind of technology. Oh, this is great. It's the size of a ring now. This is fantastic. And I had kids, and my kids are bad sleepers and running businesses and everything like that. And basically, for like 2 years straight, this thing gives me a red light. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not recovering. And I'm like, you know what? some days when I'm not recovering, I have fantastic workouts.
Right.
Some days I don't. And I started to recognize this doesn't feel like it's actually useful to me, right? I'm just going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to do my best to connect with my body, because ultimately this ring is becoming my guru. It's telling me, you shouldn't be doing this today. And you know what? Some days I did it and it worked great and it felt fantastic. And some days I did it and it didn't feel fantastic, right? Another thing I did too is I started using the Whoop. And so I thought to myself, let's wear an Oura ring and a Whoop, and let's check out what happens here.
What?
So I did that for a month, right? And the funniest thing to me was the recovery scores were different, right? They were all generally the same, so to speak, but they're different. And then I realized, wait a second, this is an algorithm that these companies are creating to determine these recovery scores. So again, this is all them telling me what I should do and how I should feel, not me connecting with myself and saying, hey, how do I show up for me in this moment right here?
Absolutely.
And the second thing I want to say about wearables is this. They are driven primarily by energy expenditure. Okay? It's heart rate, it's calories burned, it's, miles walked, it's things like that. And to me, like, this is where the fitness industry goes so wrong. It's all about energy expenditure, intensity, it's about output, it's about, all these things that are related to burning fat, right? Absolutely. And things like this. But at the end of the day, does your Apple Watch tell you that you're moving well? Does your Apple Watch tell you that you have good connection with your body? You know how to feel your muscles the right way?
Does not.
No, it does not, right? So you might be closing those rings on your Apple Watch every day, but every step you take, you might have your knee caving in. You might be hurting yourself, right? And we see this a lot, even with people in the WeShape community. They're like, well, I couldn't do the workouts today, so I went for a 3-mile walk, but my knee hurts. And I'm like, well, maybe you should have done the workouts, because it would have been more focused around mindfully moving, but instead you hit the pavement and you had this poor movement pattern from a previous injury or whatever it may be, and you end up hurting yourself. So, I like this. I agree with you in the same way. It's just like, it can be helpful if it's just neutral data that you're looking at for just general health and whatnot. But if you start trying to close those rings every single day, and if you don't close them, you're a failure.
You're a failure.
It can be really challenging. And it can be something that you get addicted to. We had one member in our community during one of our challenges actually came on the call and said, I was so proud of myself today. I had a streak. I think the streak, it was absurd. It was like a 1,000-day streak of closing the rings on the Apple Watch.
My God.
And she said, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized I am being neurotic about this. I'm not listening to my body. I'm not giving myself grace. And I skipped it for the day. And I just said, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. And I was like so happy about that, because I've had my own experiences of getting obsessed with this one thing.
Absolutely. And, I think the key to this, and what we'll probably find with all of these, sort of technology-driven, exercise, add-ons, is like, you have to know yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be in touch with yourself. Just like you said, the ring became your guru. It's not telling you what to do. And, I have my doubts about how specific something can be if it's just on your ring finger. It's like, how much data are you getting from this one point on my body, that's accurate? And then in the experience, I'm not surprised you wore 2 things at the same time, Tyler.
I'm curious.
My experience, seeing that they weren't always, the same. So I think that says a lot about leaning too heavily into this outside source for your data on when you should and shouldn't be working out, or how you should and shouldn't be working out. We have to end up leaning into our own wisdom, but you don't have that connection to your body.
Yeah. But you'll never develop it unless you practice it.
You will never develop it.
And if you're constantly leaning on things outside of yourself, then it's just never going to happen, right? You're never going to have that good connection.
100%.
All right. Number 2, mobile exercise applications. Mobile exercise applications.
Okay, so this one for me, I lean into mobile exercise applications because I am an anti-gym person. Like, I am not committed in this season in my life. I know that can change, but I am not committed in this season of my life to getting dressed in real workout clothes, putting on shoes, getting my car keys, and getting in my car to go and move my body. Doesn't feel right. I feel like I've wasted half the day just getting ready and driving and driving. I don't want to do it. So for me, mobile fitness apps is really the only way I work out.
Yeah.
Between WeShape and then I have the Peloton app on my TV, that is how I work out.
I love that. I think you mentioned something really powerful here, which is like time.
It's
and
time.
the value of time.
Yep.
And I think that what the gyms did is they told us, you can't get results unless you have
you're here.
All these machines that cost, thousands of dollars. And it was really Nautilus was the company that really popularized this. And they had all these circuit training machines isolated. They're the best results for muscle building and blah, 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 blah. Right. And at the end of the day, again, machines don't help you practice movement,
They do
right?
not.
So you don't end up cultivating that sense of awareness and kinesthetic awareness.
And a lot of the
right?
machines actually contribute to faulty movement patterns,
right.
honestly.
Or imbalances in muscle strength,
Yeah.
especially like, neglecting the stabilizers and those the smaller muscles that are necessary for coordination and balance,
Yeah.
right? So I agree with you. I think mobile, I like weightlifting, right?
Yeah.
I have a gym at my house, which is I'm very privileged to have. But on the same note, I think that most people just want to feel good in their bodies.
Yeah.
And you don't need anything other than like a little space in your living room and maybe like a chair or something like that to be able to get a good workout.
For sure.
So I'm all for mobile exercise apps. One thing I will say though is that, and I think we're going to get to this in a second, is I think a lot of apps act similarly to like the classes at a gym.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Where you're going to follow along and it's going to be like a one size fits most approach. And that's one area where I will caution people on apps is if you're doing the apps and you're feeling like, oh, this doesn't feel right to me, especially if you have injuries, flexibility restrictions, weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like it's time to get something a little more specific to you.
Right.
So you don't end up just doing workouts that may not actually be helping you in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think there is a tendency for injuries when we are just kind of soloing it with our workouts. You and I are different, right? We have a lot of education about the body and movement. But, for someone who doesn't, that's not their area of expertise or genius, then, just getting any old app and just following along, maybe it is better than not doing anything, but it could lead to issues and injuries when you don't have someone kind of helping you figure out the form and the movement, but I would say overall mobile applications are more good than bad to me.
Sure.
But yeah, there's always opportunities for growth with that.
Yeah, of course. I love that. Number 3, and I actually love this one. I'm so happy about this one. Fitness programs for older adults.
I'm a fan. Yeah. I am a fan. As a physical therapist, this is something I used to actually implement specifically for the elderly community. And I did there's a system, I think it's out of Canada, it's called the Otago Balance System. And it was a program I got certified in. I just started teaching classes in the area to help people. Very basic functional movements, very, you look at it and be like, what are they doing? But to prevent falls and decrease that mortality rate. So I love...
touch on that real quick, just in case people don't understand. That's important to understand.
Yeah, it's very important. So as we age, obviously, our muscle mass decreases, our bone density decreases, our balance and coordination decrease. And if you're not actively working on pursuing, better balance and coordination, strength and all of that, then the chances of falling are very high. And once you get to a certain age, I don't have the statistics in front of me at the moment, but there's a very high risk of death following a fall, specifically if the fall results in a breaking of a hip.
Yeah.
And so that's really one of the ways people lose a lot of their functional mobility and independence as they age. Yeah. It's just one simple fall, and it doesn't even have to look like a bad fall. It could be something real simple. And so this program had some very good data on decreasing the fall risk in older adults, and so I was all for it. So I love anything catered to older people because they don't need to do CrossFit. They don't need to do, a lot of these programs. They don't need to do the P90Xs and all the other, they need to do something that's functional and based on their day-to-day life. That's going to be the activities they actually need to engage in. So I'm a huge fan, and I know, at WeShape, we touch a lot of our movements are kind of built around the idea that older adults are going to be engaging with this program. Yeah. And so, we have a lot of safeguards in place and a lot of scalability so that they can safely, which is really important. So huge fan of focusing on that community because they need it.
Big time. Yeah. And I think this is a community that, was a community where the doctors knew everything, and they were the ones who got bitten by the Nautilus thing in the gym, and cardio and long distance running and all these different things that I think that community really bought into. And a lot of that stuff ended up harming people in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so with this older community, I think that there's this notion that if you're going to do a workout, then it's based on energy expenditure. It's going to be based on sweat and heart rate and all these different things. And the reality is, and we focus on this primarily at WeShape, is strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination, right? Those things will make your body feel its best, okay? It's not necessarily like how far you can run, right? I tell people sometimes it's not about me bashing jogging. It's about me bashing people not understanding that bad jogging is going to end up hurting you, right? You can jog if you move well, but if you jog and you don't move well, you're going to end up hurting yourself and you're going to need something different, right?
Yeah.
But if we target this community, I think it's going to be really helpful. I mean, it's going to reduce the amount of healthcare needs we have in our country.
Yep.
It's going to increase not just lifespan, but this is more important, the quality of your life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
If you lose the ability to stand up from a chair because you've lost too much muscle mass in your body, do you know how bad your quality of life ends up being?
Yeah.
But if you just learned how to stand up from a chair well, and every day, 3 or 4 times a day, you did 10 sit to stands, right?
Yeah.
And you just maintained that for the rest of your life, that's going to help you so dang much,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And I think this is also a neglected community, because something I hear people say that really is like breaks my heart is you get somebody, you show them like a program or you show them some moves and they go, well, I'm going to have to get fit before I do this program, right? And that's why at WeShape, the lowest levels we have on any of the movements that we teach are like you're in bed and you can't sit up and you can still do this movement.
Absolutely.
Because that's where it should start. It should start with someone who maybe did fall and break their hip, and they're looking at like, well, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be going to the gym and hitting the leg extension machine to get my quads back in shape. How about you just put your feet down on the bed and push your heels into the ground, you know, and start building that mind-muscle connection, building that awareness, right? I think that's so important. I think it's so neglected, right?
It is neglected.
Yeah.
And I will just add this as a caveat, you know, if we live long enough, we will all deal with some level of disability. We will lose function. That is about as guaranteed as, you know, death, right? We're going to lose some of the stuff that we're able to do at some point, or we'll have to do things differently. And it doesn't take away your value as a human if you're not able to stand up, you know. But if we, you know, focusing in on controlling what we do have some control over, building strength is 100%, and building coordination and balance like 100%, and flexibility. Like what we have to do as we age, like you said, if we want to really enhance our quality of life. Cardio is cute, right? And especially if you always tell clients, if you have any cardiovascular stuff going on ever, like if you've had a heart attack or you have any issues with, you know, clogged arteries, and the cardio is great. But really, like long-term improving how you live and how you move, strength training, flexibility training, balance and coordination training.
Yeah.
For the win every time.
Yeah. And I think also just this broader category of like, let me backtrack. I think most people never take the time in their life to understand how their body's supposed to move.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the amount of time I see people on like one of our coaching calls in our community, they go like, oh, my shoulder hurts. I say, lift your arm over your head. And they do this thing where they internally rotate and their thumb points towards the ground. And I say, do this for me. Put your palm towards your face, lift your arm over your head. They're like, my shoulder's fixed. I'm like, wow, like for someone to go their whole life and nobody to ever say that, right? It's really, it's embarrassing for the fitness industry, in my opinion. And so I think that as you get older, having a program that's not about intensity, not about energy expenditure, it's about quality of movement. It's about connecting with your body. It's about learning how the body's meant to move. And it's about nurturing those qualities we already talked about. And that's what will help extend the life, extend the quality of your life relative to whatever it might be otherwise.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
And you can start at any point. That's why the other thing about focusing on this community, I think sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm too old, or it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does. It still does.
Yeah.
You know, if it's still important to you to be able to move within your capacity and in your accessibility, you can start right where you are. And just like you said, our WeShape program starts literally from lying in bed.
Yeah.
And so if you can lie in bed and you have the ability to move a limb a little bit, you can get some benefit from it.
You can do it.
So,
yeah. And you know, it's so funny that you mentioned that. I'm happy you mentioned that, because I think there is this notion like I'm too old. And people start saying that at like 50 these days, right? I'm too old to do this kind of thing, right? But if you look it up, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the studies, right? You can look at people who started doing like strength training in their 80s.
Absolutely.
And it's like they improve their muscle mass immensely, their bone density, they improve their quality of life, their capacity to move around throughout their life. So there's literally not a single age where you can't start doing this and see some benefit from it. Like even if you're like, this is it, I've probably got a year left, like maybe you got more in you if you start taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah,
so I think it's really important. This next one is dear to both of us, I know. Exercise for mental health.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
These are some good trends, by the way. I'm happy that the industry is trending towards things that are positive.
When you sent the list, I was like, oh, I thought we were going to get to talk bad about
paleo
Like
classes.
that's not what we're
and,
doing.
yeah.
Okay, fine. No, I think that I wish the fitness industry, mainstream wise, was like way more focused on the mental health aspects of movement, because there are so many.
So many.
Our society disconnects the body from the brain and the soul. Like, we just don't believe they're all connected, and they really are. And so when we think about movement from the stance of like, how is it going to impact me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that is the most, like, to me, the best bang for your buck from your time you can get from a movement. And I usually, when I work with my clients, I talk to them about like coupling activities, or, how do we enhance this thing? Maybe it's like, we're going to do a movement that you're not 100% in love with because your association with it has been kind of negative. Maybe it's something basic like walking, and it doesn't feel good, right? Because maybe you were forced to walk after dinner every day as a kid for weight loss, right? So maybe you have a negative association. Well, walking, maybe you're open to it now. So how do we make it something that feeds another part of you? Maybe we add a partner, a friend, someone you care about, so you have a social community connection while you're doing it. Maybe we do it in a place where it's beauty. Maybe you do it at a botanical garden where you can see flowers and butterflies and birds, because that does something for your mental health and your soul, and getting fresh air in your lungs. Like, how can we make this activity mean more than just, this is my exercise for the day and it's obligatory and I have to do it? Now it means something for your mental health, your emotional health, your social health. So I'm big on that. And I think we need to make our movement have way more positive mental health implications, because for a lot of us, movement was punishment and force and ugly, and because I hate myself and because I need to look different. And like, how I feel about that doesn't create anything beautiful. So yeah, the mental health benefits are huge, and we need to tap into them way more consistently.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's two things I want to touch on when it comes to exercise for mental health. One is shifting the inner dialogue, right? Because I think that even if you go to like a class rooted in intensity and, energy expenditure, you're going to hear a lot of stuff that probably won't serve you. Maybe at the time you'll push yourself and get motivated, but that's oftentimes when people get hurt, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that that's not serving us, right? And so I think a big part of the mental health aspect is, if while you're exercising, instead of being like, come on, you pussy, one more, and, like this kind of internal dialogue, that's nice
I've
dialogue,
never said
by the way.
to myself.
Oh man, I've definitely said much crueler things to myself. Instead of going that direction, it's like, you're doing fantastic.
Absolutely.
Right? This is a great job. Oh, wow, you're really taking care of yourself, right? And just kind of trying to shift that inner dialogue, regardless of what the activity is.
100%.
I think that's going to make a huge difference on people's lives. But again, the fitness industry believes that the best way to motivate is through shame and criticism.
Tough
and
love, Tyler.
tough love, right? Which is just not, I mean, come on, like, if you, would you ever look at your child and say, look, you're too fat, you should go to the gym?
That part.
Right?
Exactly.
That's horrible, right? But we do that to ourselves all the time. So let's
Okay.
shift that inner dialogue, right? The second thing about mental health, which I think is really important. Sorry, let me get a sip of water real quick. I forgot what I was going to say. Second thing on mental health.
Inner dialogue, and then...
Oh, got it. Yep. The second thing about mental health that I think is really important is, when we talk about mental health, underneath that, at least from my perspective, there's always some sort of self-worth that's tied to it.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And when we exercise because we're hating ourselves and whatnot, we're cultivating a lower sense of self-worth over time. We're like fortifying our self-hatred. When we learn to exercise in a positive way, like, I deserve to take care of myself. I deserve to feel good. I deserve to have time and space in my calendar where I can connect with me and my body.
Absolutely.
We are fortifying our positive self-worth. And if we fortify our positive self-worth, what ends up happening? Our life's usually a lot better.
Absolutely.
We show up for ourselves. We're teaching ourselves to show up for ourselves, which is something that, unfortunately, we all get beaten out of us over time, right? And so I think that if we can take the approach of recognizing that if we don't take care of ourselves, underneath that's probably like, I don't care about myself as much as I should.
Yeah.
Right. And if we can learn to say, I deserve to take care of myself. Right. And then we can take action on that for long enough, it becomes a new belief. It becomes who we actually are.
And it helps us not allow others or ourselves to beat ourselves up or speak negatively about ourselves anymore. So that becomes
because they can
like
say
our
it to us and it
means nothing.
Yeah, you're stuck in that mentality.
And when we get one of those negative thoughts, we can, shush it
and let
away
it go,
and be like, whatever. Like we don't have to, our thoughts don't have to become our deep-seated beliefs anymore. And that is huge because we can't always stop the weird, mean thoughts from like coming. But if we know like, okay, that's my old critic. I'm not listening to you anymore. I know better. That's so powerful. So,
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. It's like imagining somebody walking up to you and criticizing you. You're too fat. You should go to the gym, right? And at first we believe it and we embody it, and then it tortures us, and then we go to the gym because of it, and then it fortifies that negativity. Versus, you're too fat. You should go to the gym. And you're like, oh, I feel sorry for this person.
I feel sorry that
you feel that way, right? That's the same thing as that inner dialogue, right? We don't have to believe all the thoughts we think. I think it's a big lesson.
For sure.
Number 5, data-driven training technology.
This is so deep. I mean, for me, this kind of goes back to like the wearable technology, getting all of this data, this information. Again, I think elite athletes, it makes perfect sense. This is a part, like you said, of your job, of your livelihood. You need to have this data. You need to be able to see, what's what, the recovery, workout, all of the things that I personally, as, just a mom who is working out for my self-care, I don't give a shit about. I don't care about this data because I know I have I've had the notion to like go too far and to be hyper focused and obsessive. So for me, the data, I know that data is not just neutral with me. And so in knowing myself, I don't really want much data. I went to a part of my birthday month in October. I did something for 25 days straight to celebrate, just some big, some small. Sometimes it was just taking a few breaths outside. But one of the days I was like, I'm going to go and work out somewhere else because, I just work out in my bedroom. Sometimes it gets a little mundane, right? So it's like, I'm going to go somewhere. My sister goes to, one of those gyms, Orange something. And I was like, I'll go with you for a class. And it's always so awkward for me interacting with fitness professionals because just the assumptions that come, right? So I have to say very much from the beginning, they start with what are your goals? And I'm like, I just want to work out, just here to have fun, just want to move my body, don't want to lose weight. I'm not buying a membership. I'm not committing to coming back. I don't care about my stats because it was the 1 mile day.
Yeah, but what part of your body do you want to tone?
That part, and that's literally where they went. It was like, so you just want to tone? No. I just want to be here and be left alone. So I'm doing the class and it's fun, and they have a rowing machine.
Yeah.
I like a rower, okay?
2
machines I like at the gym. Y'all may not care, but the rower, because it just feels so powerful. I don't know why.
It's a powerful move.
And a climber. And most gyms don't have the climbers, but I'm getting a climber for my house because I love them. I love feeling like I'm, climbing a wall and just scaling a wall like Spider-Woman. I don't know. But I was enjoying it, but then you look at the screen and it's saying like, this is how many, and she's like, this should be your goal. And I'm just like, I just want to put tape over it and her mouth and just be like, shut up. I just want to do the movement. Yeah, I don't want the data. So me and data are not friends, but I am not knocking anyone who wants that data. If you're training for a marathon or if you're, you want to see the stats, you need to know the numbers.
You want to build your volume, you got to know the stuff. Yeah.
It's important for some people. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. I'm going to agree with your answer for the most part, and then I'm going to take a different approach to this question, okay? So I think that know yourself. Know if data is useful to you. If it's useful to you, it doesn't stimulate self-judgment.
Yeah.
If you're self-judgment because of it, it's probably not useful to you.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you could just use that as a filter, it's probably a good place to be. But on the flip side, I think about this as an app creator behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
And so like what I obsess about and what I've been working on a lot over the last handful of months especially is when a person walks into a personal trainer and they say, here's my history, here's what I'm hoping to do, right? And then the trainer gets a chance to actually watch them move and understand maybe where they're at with their strength, their flexibility, their balance, their coordination, right? And then can assemble like, okay, I think this is a program that will work nicely for them. And then that person goes home, they come back the next day. A really skilled trainer is not just going to follow the routine and force somebody to do that. They're going to say, how do you feel today?
Right.
Say, how did you sleep last night? And they're going to judge based on that person's actual state of being showing up. Like, how do we augment this in order to make sure that this person's getting what they need today? And so, that's what we try to do with WeShape. That's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build the decision matrix, which is backed by data that we collect from the individuals, right? And so to me, it's like if we, as a company, if we can think about, this world-class personal trainer that everybody loves to go work with is ultimately just collecting data and making decisions based on that data. How do we create the decision matrix that person is doing and continuously work on improving it so that someone else comes in, they're not caring about their data. They don't even really care. They don't necessarily have to look at it or anything like that. But when they show up, they're not being served something that's inappropriate for them.
I love
They're
that.
being served something that is perfectly appropriate for them at the highest capability.
100%.
That's where I love the data-driven piece of it. Is I think that in the long run, I think WeShape can be one of like the largest human experiments in how do we get people to show up for themselves from a positive place, and what actually works best to help people feel better in their bodies, right? And so I think about it more like that, and in that circumstance, I get really excited to think about the data approach.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, because if I'm thinking about it as a consumer as the person exercising, but when I think about it from the standpoint of like a physical therapist, that's what I do every day. It's like, how'd you sleep? How'd you feel? Did you try these movements? How were they for you? Are you having pain? And and everything we do from that moment forward is based on all of that data. It's just not something they're necessarily aware of. So 100%, I'm with you there.
Yeah, cool. This is a loaded one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Functional fitness training.
So
sounds good, doesn't it?
Right. I was like, immediately, yes. Immediately, I like all things functional. Like, I don't, we talked about earlier, I don't need to go to the gym and do the stupid crunch machine to build my core. I would rather engage my abdominals and sweep the floor, right? Because that is a functional thing I have to do. And I have 100% hurt my back while sweeping because of my form. And it's not an exercise. It is a functional movement. I love the idea of functional movement, but I don't know what that necessarily indicates.
Right. What does it mean?
What
It's
does
a
it
loaded term,
actually
right?
mean? It's so loaded.
Yeah.
Immediately yes to functional movement, functional exercise, but what are we actually talking about, Tyler?
Yeah, okay. I love this question because I had an amazing mentor a long time ago, a guy named Pavel Tsatsulin, and he really, really helped me with some concepts, right? And one of them is the SAID principle, right? Which is specific adaptation to imposed demands. All right, this is how the body functions, meaning whatever we practice, we get better at.
Absolutely.
And why this was so critical to me was I actually got a chance to train a Navy SEAL and a professional surfer many years ago. And my thought process is, okay, I'm going to watch the activities that they do, and I'm going to have them work through those activities and blah, 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 blah. In my head, I'm thinking I'm going to be like the smartest trainer in the world because of that, right? And this guy was training Maria Sharapova at the time, right? Like one of the world's greatest tennis players. And he told me, you do not need to train them how to do their sport.
No.
They need to practice their sport in order to learn their sport. What you need to do is make them strong, flexible, and have good balance and coordination.
100%.
And really, how you do that? The basics.
Yeah.
The basics. Relentless basics, right? You are not their coach for their sport. You are their coach for basic strength training and movement training, right?
Yeah.
And so why I'm saying this is when people use the words functional fitness, I often see it getting to this out of control level. You get people standing on one of those wobble boards on one foot while they're pressing a kettlebell upside down and somebody's yanking on their waistline with a band. And you're like, what is the point?
There's nothing functional about
There's nothing functional about this, right? And so when I think about functional movements, what we have to think about is what do we actually do in our daily life? We bend over, we pick stuff up, right? We come down to the ground, we come back up off the ground. We walk up and down stairs. We squat by sitting down in chairs stairs and standing back up, right?
Reach overhead.
Yeah, we reach overhead, right? We pull things towards us. We bring our arms back behind our backs, right? So all these movements are movements that we should be practicing. But if we think about it, it's really just how do we articulate the joints through their full range of motion while expressing flexibility and strength, and how do we coordinate the body to do so in a way where all the joints are in good alignment. And then when it comes down to just this overkill of functional, quote unquote, functional movement training, it just gets out of control, right? I think if people practice lunging, hip hinging, bouncing on one foot, squatting, planking, table topping, putting arms overhead, like these are the movements that are going to serve you for the rest of time.
I agree, 100%.
Okay, so be careful. If you do functional fitness training and you're like, and also just one more thing, these can be dangerous.
They can
right?
be very
If you're standing on top of an
dangerous.
exercise ball because you want to make a awesome, Instagram video, right? Like, get out of here, right? But people praise it because it's cool. It looks cool, right?
It looks cool. It looks very difficult, and there's some level of danger to it. People enjoy that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
All right. Health and wellness coaching. I don't really know what they mean by health and wellness coaching on this one, but this is a subjective one too, right? Who's your coach?
Because that is all that matters. Let's just be clear. Who is your coach? Like, what is their mindset? What is their framework from which they are coaching you? That tells it all,
So what are some red flags? Let's go there. What is a health and wellness coach red flag?
I'm going to say this from the perspective of someone who does not believe in encouraging body transformations or weight loss or that type of thing. So if that's your lane, I respect you, but the red flags will be different. What I will say is health and wellness are terms that have been co-opted very successfully by diet culture, and it's not really about health and wellness. So I would want anyone looking for coaching to be aware that health and wellness means more than what your body does for movement and what you eat, because health and wellness is so much bigger than that.
Yeah, quality of your relationships, your sleep, your environment, if you have access to health care, clean water, right? Like there's so much.
So many things. So looking for someone who has more of a holistic framework would be ideal. But I would say red flags would be people who are focused on, tracking heavily what you're eating, what you're doing for movement, people who are suggesting before and after photos, before and after measurements, people who are suggesting restrictive diets where you are being told to cut out major food groups, people who are suggesting very narrow windows for eating and basically essentially telling you to ignore your hunger cues in order to eat within this window of time for your optimal results. People who are encouraging, who are making recommendations without having a full understanding of who you are, what you do. That is really red flaggish. Like, what do you mean? You can't give a person a recommendation if you don't know what they're already doing.
Yeah. Did they ask you a lot of questions?
Did they ask you tons of questions, almost redundant and annoying questions, because they want to really understand you and who you are and how you're moving through the world. So if you have someone that's just kind of ready with this cookie cutter idea and it's all about, restriction and it's all about aesthetics, what you look like, how much you weigh, what your measurements are, I would argue that is the opposite of health and wellness. That is, diet and exercise. Those are behaviors that lead to, disordered eating and movement patterns, and that lead to very non-specific results and results that are not sustainable. And I don't think it's health and wellness, and it's not holistic if it's not taking into consideration your mental, emotional, spiritual health and things outside of just what you're moving, how you're moving, and what you're eating.
Yeah, this is big. And for some reason, this story comes up for me about one of our members who had worked with this coach for a while, and she'd gradually lost like a fair amount of weight. It's like 50 or it was like 90 pounds, I think,
wow.
right? And the trainer was really congratulatory of that. And then when she said, "Oh, I've lost 93 pounds. I feel amazing. I feel really good," and she did it gradually. It wasn't crash dieting or anything like that. He said, What if you just go 7 more? Then you can call it 100, right? And of course, her brain kicks in and has to like double time on the diet, double time on the exercise. And she didn't lose 7 pounds. She said she lost 15. Look at me, 15. but she was burned out. She was exhausted. She felt like shit. Her body didn't feel good, right? And at the end of the day, what is any of that doing for you? Why do we take somebody who has transformed the way they show up for themselves in a positive way and say, not enough, society wants you to go to the point where you actually are hurting yourself, right? So that's the question I think I would ask myself from a mentality perspective. Is this person listening to you and encouraging you and helping you connect with yourself and feel proud about yourself? Or is this person, playing on those psychological triggers that's trying to convince you to do more,
moving the goalposts.
Yeah, moving the goalposts, making you have to do more. And as far as like fitness and movement is oriented, right? I think the big question I would ask, do I leave this session working with this person and feel more knowledgeable about my own body?
Yeah.
Do I feel more connected to my own body, or do I feel like dependent on that person to tell me what to do, right? If I say this hurts a little bit, are they making adjustments for that? And not only are they making adjustments for that, are they telling you why they think this might be happening so that you can be aware of that when you're going outside of the gym into your life as well? So it's one of the things that kills me is that like movement is not taught. Even in like kinesiology, and I can't speak to PT schools and whatnot because I know there is more education there around that. But I think a lot of the education I see from like personal trainers is kinesiology, and it's like Krebs cycles and like the anatomy systems and like all these different things. It's not like, okay, this is how the knee should move, and like this is how we should stabilize the trunk, and all these different things.
For
so
sure.
yeah,
and that's very necessary. And I would say, I feel like we start talking about like personal training and stuff, and it takes a bit of a tangent, but it makes sense because these are, the people that we go to for coaching and health and wellness. And, one of my favorite trainers is actually a guy named Ren, Fitness Jones Training, and he works primarily with women. And what I appreciate and value about him is he goes and gets additional education, just extra stuff that never came up in personal training curriculum. Just constantly learning and focusing in on populations that he's not a part of. So he has more knowledge in that way. And I just appreciate this idea that like when you go to see someone and they're coaching you, it's important to understand the parameters of what a coach is supposed to provide. And I would say a big red flag that I didn't mention earlier is if someone is giving you nutrition recommendations and they are not a nutritionist or a dietitian. That is actually outside of the scope of trainers in most places. Maybe other countries is not.
Been guilty of that in the past.
Me too. I have a doctorate degree in physical therapy, and it is outside of my scope to give nutrition recommendation. But I had a whole workout plan that included what you should and shouldn't eat. So we all do that. It's all stupid shit that we thought we should do.
But carbs are the enemy. And fat's the enemy.
But that is a huge red flag if they're giving you any nutrition recommendations or advice and they don't have a certification as a dietitian or nutritionist.
Right.
Period. Yeah. So really being on the lookout for that. And also, just everything you were saying, this idea of, what are they making adjustments and modifications for what's happening? Are they listening to you? And also, are they encouraging that bullshit, no pain, no gain?
Yeah.
Are they, because some people in a training session wouldn't tell the trainer that something hurts.
Right.
Because it's supposed to.
Don't want to let them down. Yeah, exactly.
So if you're working with someone like that, fire them immediately.
Yeah,
Tell
that's
them
big.
Lisa said so.
I'm going to tangent here really quick too, because, we sometimes get on the topic of nutrition. And I think that it's really common for trainers to follow the fads, read a book, just start preaching to everybody. And, one thing I will say, having been that person and having done a lot of different things, is ultimately what you realize is everything works great for some people and everything works shitty for some people.
Yep.
And so what does that tell us? What we should be learning, just like when we talk about movement, is how to connect with our bodies, how our bodies feel good, how our bodies move. And when it comes to nutrition, it's how to connect with our bodies, how the food makes our bodies feel good. And for people, that's different things, right? It can be different things.
Absolutely different things.
So it's really important, I think, to have that approach of like individualism and deep understanding of each individual, and just to connect with yourself. Right. This person should help you be more connected with yourself, not be dependent on them.
And their rules,
Right.
they're
I always say
arbitrary.
with WeShape, like I said this the other day, I was like, my number one goal would be someone to come in, go through our challenges, and then be like, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah,
right. Like if you said, I
absolutely.
don't need you anymore, I know how to work out from home. I know how to stretch my body. I know how to recover when I have tightness and injuries and things like that. I know how to connect with myself and connect with what I want to eat. Like I feel good in my body. I take time to connect with myself. Or like I appreciate myself. You don't need us anymore.
You don't need us
right.
anymore. That's the whole
That's
purpose.
success, right? It's like, do you want to go to the chiropractor who's like, well, it's going to take 150 sessions to straighten out your spine, or do you want to go to the one that like does the job and goes, hey, if you feel bad again, come back and I'll keep trying and do my best,
100%.
It's so funny. Okay, this one, I don't even know what this one means, so maybe you can. Sustainable and eco-friendly fitness.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Got it. So the next one, I don't even know what this one means, all right? So it's sustainable and eco-friendly fitness.
Yeah, that I don't know what it means either. I was thinking it was exercise mats from like recyclable materials,
Which is probably positive, right?
Yeah. What? Are we all making our mats at home and bringing them to class? Like I don't understand.
Maybe people are smelting their kettlebells out of recycled cans or something like this, right?
What?
Yeah.
Are we composting something, bringing it to the gym? I don't know what this is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Someone educate us.
You know what? I'll
please.
just say I'm a fan of things that are sustainable and eco-friendly. And I also think a lot of companies call themselves sustainable and eco-friendly because they're trying to attract a
Liars.
particular audience, right?
Yeah.
So just know that whatever you're buying from, if it says that, maybe just dig a little deeper and just make sure it is that. Because sometimes we find out that this is just a badge they stick on the label to make us all feel good.
Facts.
All right.
So bad.
Number 9, and this is an interesting one. Virtual reality and augmented reality workouts.
Okay, so I think when the Wii came out many, many years ago,
Oh, yeah.
I was working in pediatrics as a physical therapist, and the clinic I was at bought one immediately. And I loved it, and it was so cool, to like go through the physical motions and see it happen on the screen. And, for me, that was enough. What we're talking about today is like a very immersive and a little nauseating for me personally. Like the headgear, and I think it's cool. I think it's very cool. But I watch like really weird shows, y'all. I'm in the sci-fi. I watch like Black Mirror. And that shit scares me. I'm like, oh, no. You're going to have a whole virtual reality life and you're going to get stuck there and you're not going to be able to come out. So I shy away from like super duper scary looking robot technology personally, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it if you're into that type of thing. But there is something to be said about like depraving the senses in that way, like eyes and ears, and I think there's like a letdown when you come back to the real world.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's
Have
so
you done much
interesting.
of that?
No, I said this right before the show. I'm like a chop wood, carry water, pen and paper kind of person, right? Like that's who I am at the core. I try my best to embrace the technologies that come out and be aware of them and whatnot. And I love the use of them because again, what we're trying to do at WeShape is create something that feels deeply personalized, that feels so personalized to you. And the reason why is like, I don't think I share this very often, but like one of the things that drove me crazy was when I was a personal trainer and I worked my ass off and I read and I studied and I found mentors and I did all this stuff. And I first started working at this gym and you'd see somebody just put somebody on a treadmill for their warm up and then just like text on their phone.
Yeah.
And then you see them run the circuit of Nautilus machines and they just be looking at their phone, right? And I'm like, does this person know that they're spending $75, $95 an hour on somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about and doesn't really actually care? And really they're just popular and they're just good at talking. And people end up using their trainers as their therapists, not somebody who's actually supporting their connection with self and learning how to move. And so I remember that was like an early experience for me where I was like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And then to couple on top of that is my dad. He got us our first membership, which was 24-hour fitness. And he got a free personal training session. And he went to the gym and the personal trainer smashed him into the ground and he was sore for 7 days afterwards and never went back. Right. Because that was his experience. Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of have this point of like, I'm a big fan of personal training. If you can afford it, I'm a big fan of personal trainers who are really continuing their education, really deeply care about the people that they're serving. And that's like the 1%. or maybe less, right? People don't understand that you can go out and get a certification in like a weekend or a few weeks online, and then go out there, call yourself a personal trainer, ask for $100 an hour, right? And if you're charismatic and good at selling yourself, like you can get that, you can stack your client list, and then everybody wants to show up because you're the most popular trainer, not because you're the best trainer. And so to me, like utilizing technology to democratize that experience of having a world-class personal trainer and maybe even someone who could speak to you in a positive way, right? If we can do that, then that gives everybody the opportunity to experience that. And it gives them that for a rate that they can afford, which is what most people can't do that with personal training. So I'm a huge fan of embracing technology. I wanted to say that first. Now, when it comes to like AR and VR, I guarantee this is going to be the future of certain people liking the way this experience is in fitness, right? I, like you, put on a headset and I get vertigo and nausea, and I'm just like, what is happening to me? I start sweating, right? I take it off and I run outside, you know, what's going on there? So I don't think I will be participating in AR and VR. I like the world I live in too much to want to just go into that world, but I could see a lot of value in it, right? You know, to me, I think of like maybe where WeShape could be in the future is you're in that AR and you're talking to this digital version of this trainer who could be speaking to you,
Coach
who could be
Tyler.
watching you and could be correcting you and helping you with that. But I also think that, again, speaking to the nausea, right, the sensory aspects really need to be honed there. And that's why people, some percentage of people experience this, like, what is like this connection with my body? When your eyes are perceiving that you're moving forward and your body is not actually moving forward, it creates this disconnect with your, what's the inner ear, right? And then all of a sudden you lose balance, you feel sick, you feel nauseous. And so I think that there needs to be a lot more consideration to perhaps how this is displayed so that people aren't maybe getting better at moving in the AR world and then it's not happening in the real world. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So
that's an important consideration for sure.
I mean, it's going to happen. So I think it's going to happen. I hope that we are at the forefront of that in what we are able to offer people. I just hope there's a lot of considerations around this, you know? So, all right, last one. And this is such a good one to end on. Community-driven fitness. Community-driven fitness.
It's the best. I mean, obviously, I think every single one, we can find a pro and a con, right? If you're not connected with the right community, that can be tough. But community-driven fitness for me is at the core of I think my movement practices, even though most of my movement now is like at home alone, but it started in community with other people. That social health and wellness is such a big part of like my movement. It's like being connected with other people, enjoying other people's company, learning from other people, teaching other people. I mean, it does it for me. And I think having the right community to support you, it really can combat a lot of that ugliness that we bring to our fitness routines. Because like I said, you know, like we talked about earlier, so much of our fitness is driven by disdain for our bodies and dislike for ourselves. And so when you have the right supportive community around you, it's the reminders that you need. Like, you're doing so great. Like, I'm so proud of you. You showed up. And then you can reciprocate that positive energy. So I think more good comes from community than bad. There are always communities that are not for you. And so sussing that out is really important, right? I'm not the girl right now at this stage in my life for the super competitive community sport outlet. Like, even I used to, when I first moved to Charlotte back in 2008, I used to meet up with like the little run groups and super supportive, kind, loving people. But I started realizing running wasn't my thing anymore. And so it just wasn't, even though I enjoyed hanging out with them, I wasn't enjoying it. And I was feeling like, oh, I'm getting left behind. Oh, I need to go faster. Oh. And then it's like, oh, okay, this activity isn't for me. The community, great. This activity, not me. So I had to bow out and find another way to connect in community. So I think it's about finding the fit that makes sense for you, getting with people who are like-minded or who are doing similar things to you and who can support you and you can support them. But if you ever get to that place where you're feeling like uber competitive, uber jealous, like left out, like, then, you know, it's time to move on. And it has doesn't mean anything negative about those people. It's just you're not connecting with it in the way that serves you anymore. So,
yeah. I love that answer. I would love to speak to the people that are struggling to create a habit out of showing up for themselves and moving and practicing self-care, because I think that oftentimes when we talk about fitness, like, there's just a lot of people are talking to the people that already work out and trying to figure out how do we do that differently or better, try this, you know.
Right.
And the reality is a smaller group of people than the people who don't have this as a habit, right? And so to me, when I think about community, right, where I saw the value in community, and I'm able to watch this happen within WeShape and the community we've cultivated, is that the way you treat yourself and your capability of showing up for yourself is grounded in your beliefs, right? If you believe that you're not worthy of, you know, your own love and self-care, then you won't do it, right? You won't do it. But if you believe that you're worthy of your own love and self-care, you will do it. But that sounds simple, and there's a pretty big leap between those two categories, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I like to say to our community over and over again is what community does is it shows us that there are people out there just like us, struggling with the same things as us, trying to figure out how to do the same things as us. And when we connect with those people, we feel safe, right? Because we no longer have to sit there and judge and criticize. We criticize ourselves because we think we're different than everybody else. And we're trying to fit in. Oh, I'm such a horrible at this. I should be like that. When we start to see there's 100 people who are struggling just like we are, oh, it's okay to be me.
It's okay.
It's okay to be me. When we feel safe, we can change. When we don't feel safe, we can't change. And when I say change, I'm not talking about change the way you look. I'm change your beliefs about yourself. Your habits, right? And if people in that community all understand that concept, which is what we try to cultivate here at WeShape, then what happens is the people who have spent time in it help the people who haven't spent time in it make that transition. Because when they go to their friends in real life, their other communities, and say, I'm trying this new approach, right? It's me being kind to myself. It's me doing workouts that feel good, right? And their friends go, oh, that's lame. You should go try this, and you should do this diet, and you should do this thing, right? It's crabs in a barrel. It's anytime we try to crawl out of that societal bullshit that we get stuck in, somebody reaches up, grabs us, and tries to pull us back in. And what you need is a community on the other side of that barrel grabbing you and pulling you into it, right? And so I think that, again, you said it really well in the very beginning. It depends on the community, right? And maybe a really simple test for yourself is, does this community improve my self-worth and my ability to show up for myself? Or is this community decrease my self-worth? And maybe even if I'm showing up for myself, it's all coming from fear and negativity and judgment and criticism and not love, right?
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the key point you made is safety.
Yeah.
A real good community
makes you
builds
feel
safety.
Safe. Yeah, and when you're safe, you can be real.
Absolutely.
You can be authentic. When you can do that, you can process trauma in the past and you can reset that and you can show up for yourself. If you don't feel safe, you will constantly be in the reactionary mind. You're going to be reacting based on all the patterns that you've had and learned throughout your life. If you feel safe, you can change those patterns. It makes a big difference.
Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you heard it here. Those are the fitness trends, top 10 fitness trends. I think they're great, honestly, because I was expecting ChatGPT to spit out like all these specific programs and different things like that.
I thought they were going to have like 10 different names for like intermittent fasting, if I'm being honest. I thought that's what we were going to talk about all day.
Yeah. So again, I think that my big takeaway from this conversation is like, are you connecting with yourself? Are you being kind to yourself? And are you caring for yourself? And if the trends or whatever you're going for are moving you that direction, man, keep going for it. And if it's the opposite, think twice.
Cut that shit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. This has been a fun podcast. Thanks, Lisa, for your thoughts and opinions on all those different things.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.